The Box Seat, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. Hi everyone, welcome to this edition of Your Box Seat. Yes, brought to you by our stable of sponsors. We're inside a week out from the IRT New Zealand Trotting Cup, and Michael Guerin off the back of a stellar couple of days at Kaikoura. Of course, later today we'll have the Cup trials, and all of that information will be on our Box Seat preview show on Sunday. But gee, things are building nicely.
They sure are, Greg. Big hi to you, hi to everybody watching around the country. One cup down, more cups to go. Also to our friends in Australia. I know this New Zealand Cup, this IRT New Zealand Trotting Cup, is going to mean more than the last couple have, because you have a Victorian horse. And Greg, we know the New South Wales horse, Majestic Cruiser, is now in Christchurch. We weren't sure about that 2 weeks ago. He's there. I wrote an article this week, Greg, for IRT saying this is the cup we deserve. And I think Kaikoura, who we'll talk about shortly, was the last piece to that, the 3-year-old, the glamour, the unknown. I really can't think, if I was to have a wish list for this IRT New Zealand Cup, of the ones who could actually be here. You could say you wanted Ladies in Red, but she was never going to come. You could say you might want Leap to Fame, and Grant Dixon, we'll talk about him later and his views on the New Zealand Cup. But everything Gregory really wanted is here. And that, with the crowd, with people back doing what they love to do, and all our Australian friends coming in, and those pictures going back there and being beamed into their television and talked about on their radio. Greg, this is the cup we've wanted not only for the last couple of years during COVID, this is the cup we've really wanted, I think, for the last 10 or 15 years. This is the best New Zealand Cup, maybe not an overall champion Lazarus-like quality. This is the best balanced New Zealand Cup, I think, so far this millennium.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Michael. There's so much information we need to get through. Starting with this morning and the workouts at Addington Raceway for the All-Stars team. In a moment, we're going to hear from both Mark Purdon and Brent Mangos. Brent, obviously, about his horse, South Coast Arden, because they had a pretty strong workout at Addington this morning. Mark, has been such a unique build-up to this year's IRT New Zealand Cup. Talk me through the piece of work today.
Yeah, very happy with their work today, Greg, and we've had a little bit of a bug just irritating them a little bit, and I think we're on top of that. And
A couple of goes at the standing start, probably to help South Coast Arden more than anything, but how does Self Assured feel in himself after that disappointing performance last time?
he felt more like himself today, Greg. Even warming up, you could just tell he was more alert and on the bit, and felt like he wanted to be out there, whereas Ashburton, he was just dull, and I didn't know whether it was just the way the weather changed and what have you, but he certainly felt like his old self today.
All right, he stepped really nicely, as did Spankham. What was the feeling from Natalie with regard to his work, because he looked pretty comfortable at the line?
Yes, he's in a really good place, Spankham, and he was unlucky at Ashburton. He's trained on well since then and followed it up today with some excellent work.
Mark, it hasn't been ideal. In terms of going to Tuesday, where are the confidence levels with these two?
Oh, they're up now, Greg. I was really happy with this morning's work, and I'm sure if they'd been in the Cup trials today, well, they'd have been fighting out the finish.
Right, shuffling of the seats, so to speak, because you'll have to drive Akuta being a part owner. Have you settled on drivers for your other two?
We were just going to see how they train today, and then Nat and I will have a talk and work it out from there.
His preparation hasn't gone ideally, and neither did the first start.
No, that's right, Greg. But look, his work's good. It was good this morning. He worked with both Self Assured and Spankham, obviously, and he worked really nice. Only sort of brought him out the last 100 metres, and he sort of ran up to them, and we ran a nice time. So pretty happy with his fitness level and everything else. So just luck on the day.
All right, I know you've got a decision to make about whether to take him out of the draw, but he can't afford to give them a start, can he?
Yeah, not in this field. It's a class field, and there's not just one or two chances. There's probably a good 10 winning chances, I would say. So, we'll just make that call later on today. But, I think you're better in the race than galloping out the back.
So a couple of things to cover there, Michael. Let's start with Self Assured and, of course, Spankham. Mark Purdon driving Self Assured to the inside, Spankham in the middle and South Coast Arden wider out. Spankham's work was very good. They worked a mile and a half, about 3:10, home in 58, but I noticed considerably with Spankham in particular how much he'd trimmed up, how much sharper he looked. Self-assured, you heard from Mark there, he's very pleased with where he's at. He believes he's back in the zone. And South Coast Arden, courtesy of those, the first standing start, which was not very good at all, he now goes to the unruly. What do you make of all of that information?
I think it's a really interesting time for all of those horses because a month ago, Self Assured's favourite for everything. And he's only had one off race since. He was really good at Methven. And all of a sudden, he's third, fourth, fifth, sixth pick for some people. I think this cup's a lot stronger than it was going to be a month ago. And for that reason, he's fallen back through the pack. But also, we're not used to seeing him run out of the money. And whether that was due to him having a bug at Ashburton, other horses have leapfrogged him. He can still win the cup. Yes, we know that. But your confidence is dented. It has to be. I don't think Spanking will win the cup. I'll be stunned if he can because he's had better opportunities, Greg, to win this cup. I know he's a very good track work horse, so I like what I saw there, but I'm not saying I love it because I think that would be him most days of the week, but I take on your point that he's not as tubby as he usually is. And I feel for South Coast Arden and Mango. Things just haven't gone right this campaign, and off the unruly, I don't think he can win the cup. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think he can. But I understand why Brent's putting him there because the last thing you want to do is put a horse in the field. He draws two, he gallops out and knocks somebody else over. I'm not saying that'll happen, but nothing's gone right for him, Greg, this entire campaign, and nothing went right for him this morning. So I wasn't there, you were. After viewing what you saw there, but more importantly, the language, the body language, the whole vibe of it, what do you make of those three horses, 3 of the big 15 for Tuesday?
Yeah, I have to concur with you around South Coast Arden. His chances basically starting off a mark by going to the unruly. He'll be 80, maybe even 100 to 1 by the time they jump in this race. The other two horses, very impressed with both of those. The most crucial thing now will be Natalie Rasmussen's got a decision to make. I think pre that work today, she was most likely to drive Self Assured, who of course she's driven before to win an Auckland Cup. I think possibly she might go with Spankham now on his work. So the other drive, if you like, Michael, goes to Tony Hurley. So not losing anything there, Mr. 3,500. I think they're very pleased with both of those. And Mark gave me another indication towards a Kuta off the back of his run at Kaikoura that he's exactly where he wants him to be. So intriguing, another layer to this year's New Zealand Cup.
I think it's good for the industry and good for the Cup that Mark and Natalie and Hayden don't dominate it as they have in the last 5 years. Now, that's by no means a pot on them. They're personal friends of mine, as they are yours, and many people watching the show. But any domination, think Lloyd Williams winning a lot of Melbourne Cups, it gets tiring to a degree. For the last couple of years, Greg, we've gone into the New Zealand Cup and it's been ringing Mark on Sunday, saying how are they all and making your decision. Or last year, on this exact show, it was whoever gets to the lead, out of copy that and Self Assured will win. I don't think that's great for harness racing. I think it's easy for punters, but I don't think it's great for the spectacle of the sport. And the fact that the All-Stars have all these challenges from the North and New South Wales and Victoria and even Southland, I think it's awesome, Greg. Yeah. And maybe they are just so good at what they do, maybe they will still win with a Kuta or Self Assured or Spankham. But I think it's great for the industry that the conversation doesn't stop there.
Yep. Totally agree with that. Right, let's move on to last Monday from Kaikoura, Alabar Kaikoura Cup Day. It was, and its great spectacular views as you would expect from there. Let's go back to the winning performance of Kango. That's him in front, Akuta to his outside, Pembroke Playboy to their inside, and All-American Lover diving to the inside of Pembroke Playboy. Here's Matthew Cross bringing them home and all the post-race activity from the big dance on Monday.
Kango's rallying on the inside, Pembroke Playboy, but it's Kango's Kaikoura Cup. Kango won it from Pembroke Playboy and Kaikoura. Then came All-American Lover. Smithy's Terror was really powerful.
Gee, once again, he just showed us how tough he is.
Yeah, that's right. He did. You know, it was a bit of a sketchy start, and but David took bad luck out of the equation, and it was a super drive and a good effort too from the horse.
Just talk us through what happened up the straight. Is gear changes required, or was he just goofing around? What happened there?
He might have just been running away from the crowd on the inside a little bit. Yeah, he sort of drifted out quite. Like he said, he was running out a little bit all the way. To be fair, I haven't watched the replay yet, so yeah, we'll have a talk about that over the next few days.
Well, for his third start back, you'd be pretty happy with that heading into the Cup.
Yeah, he's kept improving, Cam, so hopefully he can just improve a little bit more for next week. But yeah, no, happy enough with that run.
Well, he had no favours and had to do it tough.
Yes, yeah, it was a great run really, Cam, and he just got a little tired the last bit, but he was entitled to.
So what's the plans going forward? Do you take him to the New Zealand Cup, or do you keep him to the 3-year-old racings?
Yeah, look, I think he's certainly on that performance, I'd say he's good enough to go through to the New Zealand Cup. I think if he'd had cover through the running and that, he would have taken a lot more, or been harder to beat. So, yeah, I think on that run you'd have to go through to the Cup with him.
Well, gee, he made up some ground on the inside.
Yeah, he was a super run, sort of near last turn of the home and made up a stack of ground, so really happy with him.
Yeah, he charged home, didn't he? Smithy's Terror, just on the winner. He certainly got up the track a fair way there, Michael. I don't think it cost Kaikoura winning the race, and the margin clearly indicated that, and the siren went and it got thrown out pretty quickly. But they did leave David Butcher of $600 for not keeping a straight path up the straight. But isn't it fantastic for Anna to get this horse again into the Cup? He's been placed in an Auckland Cup. He's such a good stay. You can't count him out.
You know what they should have done? They should have got Harness Racing New Zealand, or even the RIB should have just sent David Butcher a couple of $1,000 for teaching everybody else how to drive. He just pulled their pants down. Like, Kango's a good horse, but David Butcher just went out there and embarrassed them. He missed away, settled last of the bunch, went around and said, well, Scott's a leader's track, I'm just going to go lead, and everybody got out of his way. Sometimes it's nice to have a reminder of what quality looks like. That's absolute quality. I'm not saying he's the best driver in the race. There were some great drivers in that race. But on that occasion, this football game, this cricket match, this horse race, whatever moment there is, sometimes champions stand up. And David Butcher, who a month ago couldn't drive because he'd had a hernia operation, just came out and spanked them, Greg. Doesn't matter how you dice it, he absolutely spanked them. The drive of the year so far, of the drives I've seen, because he was up against good horses. He was on a horse who's well trained by a person I have enormous admiration for, because Anna Donnelly doesn't have the family money behind her to get these horses, and she doesn't have it coming from yearling sales. She doesn't go to the sales and buy what she wants, Greg. She goes to the sales and buys what she can afford, which isn't much really. I love the story. I don't think he can win the Cup, but I think it's a great story, and I think he can run a place in a Cup. I'm not sure he can run a place in this Cup because it's such a strong one. The Butcher thing's a fantastic story. First time in a long time. I think it's nearly 70 years since a father and two sons have driven in the Cup, so that's magnificent. John will be looking down from heaven and he'll be absolutely proud of his boys. He won't be saying much because he never does, but he'll be proud of his boys, Greg. Like what I saw from the second horse, that's just who he is. Pembroke Playboy, I don't think he's going to win a major race doing that, but he's going to be a factor in most major races because of his manners. And Kaikoura, I can see why they're going. I still don't know where he fits into it, Greg. I wouldn't be surprised if he turned up $6 on Cup Day or $18, and both those things make some sort of sense to me. Do I think he's going to win a New Zealand Cup? Probably not. The horses behind Kaikoura obviously aren't going to be winning the New Zealand Cup next Tuesday. That was my take on Kaikoura. What did you make of it?
Yeah, exactly. I think you summed it up beautifully. I don't think he can win either, Kango, but he'll be in it. He'll give you a great sight, and he's such a big horse. He'll have his supporters, particularly from the Cambridge region. And I think Kaikoura to win the Cup's going to need to get the right run. Is he fast enough? Absolutely. Would Mark put him in the race if he didn't think he could win? You know the answer to that. So I'm not going to count out his chances in Pembroke Playboy. If he draws the front row, he'll be in the fight for a long way.
Here's a question for you. If Self Assured was flying and panelled them at Ashburton, won by 3, and was $1.80 for the Cup, would Kaikoura be in?
No. I think it's pretty straightforward. No.
Yeah. Okay.
That's why I think Mark left it right up to the last minute. What he did say to me today is, geez, he's bounced through that race beautifully. So,
one thing I've learned about Mark, Greg, is nobody I've ever dealt with in either code changes their mind more than Mark, which is his strength. He'll tell you a horse is going to a race and then he'll pull it out. He'll tell you a horse is not going to a race and put it back in, because so often that window is only a few days, the window to make that decision and where the real decision gets made. So I think he adds to the race. I think it's a great story. The one thing I don't want to see people doing is, if a Kuta wins the race, is say we've had our first 3-year-old winner of the New Zealand Cup.
Because it's not true.
I know.
It's not
but hey, it's all good fun.
Yeah. Someone will dine out on that for sure. Speaking of dining out off long marks in the last couple of weeks has been the defending champion. Copy that. That's him getting to the outside of Hot and Treacherous, who was withdrawn from the race yesterday. This is a brilliant performance from him, Michael. 3:16 overall, 57.28. I suppose there's some irony that when there was a handicap discussed about the New Zealand Cup, they said they wouldn't start. In the last 2 weeks, they've started off 55 and 70.
I don't think those two things line up, but we'll get to the race first before we discuss that. Magnificent. Took him a lap to catch the field. And Hot and Treacherous is a serious open class player. You could make the chat that he might add more to the Cup than some of the horses who are in there, but they have qualified and they had their rankings and they deserved to be in the Cup. So for that reason, he is not there, and he had the choice to go south if he wanted to. On Copy that, look, the fact that the North Island has a very small horse pool means that he has no choice but to start off handicaps. And he started off handicaps before. He started off a handicap last year leading into the Cup and was really good. But they made a moral stand. They wouldn't start on the Cup off a handicap, and so they should, because the Cup shouldn't be a handicap. And the reason the Cup shouldn't be a handicap is exactly what you're seeing next Tuesday. It's self-fulfilling prophecy. There was talk of the Cup becoming a handicap so to be a better betting race. We've got a $4 favourite. We've got 6 horses between $4 and $8. It's the best betting harness race I've ever seen. We don't need a handicap, and if you put any of those horses on a handicap and Copy, that would be the one, along with Self Assured, who's off the best handicaps. Self Assured would have no chance in this Cup off 20 metres. Zero. None. And that's wrong. And Copy, that would be off 10 metres, and he'd have no chance.
All right, what's your thoughts on Copy that winning and defending his title?
If he gets to the lead, Greg, he's clear horse to beat. Because I've seen nothing in the last month, apart from Rock and Roll Do's Victoria Cup, which was awfully sexy, to suggest that any of these horses could sit parked outside Copy That and beat him. With Blair Orange on, with a fit horse, with a confident horse. So I think if he rolls to the front, I actually think he's a better horse in front. Ironically, every win he's had in the last year has been coming from off the speed. I think if he rolls to the front, he'll probably win, but I have no idea whether that'll happen, and I don't think anybody else does either. But I couldn't pick him a month ago. I suppose he's kind of close enough to top pick. I don't know at the moment. But a lot of that's going to depend on the barrier draw, which is after this show is recorded. That's what I make a Copy that. I think he's happy to be home. I think he's a stallion on the territorial and they like being on their own patch, or a patch like Christchurch he knows well. What do you make of him?
Yeah, I think he's right in the zone, and the mad professor, as I like to refer to Ray Green, he's come up with a plan to get him to the Cup this year after spending months in a box, and it's hard to argue that he hasn't got him in even better form than he was last year. More on him in just a moment. Let's go to Majestic Cruiser. Here he is in the Len Smith Miles. That's a stable, mate. I cast no shadow going to the lead. Cam Hart in the blue and yellow colours there. What we didn't see is at the start of the race, Michael, he actually bobbled away, and look, a mile's not his go in life. He hits the line okay here. I wasn't totally dismissive of this performance. Yes, he ended up running 6th or 7th or whatever it happened to be, but has he had the grounding and preparation to win an IRT New Zealand Cup? Well, Jason Grimson obviously thinks so, Michael, because he's turned up.
I'm not sure it's the ideal preparation. I'm not at all concerned about the bobble coming out of the gate. They drove him off the gate, which they don't usually do with him, because they had to from barrier 1, so he wouldn't end up 3 or 4 deep. He rolled into a gallop. It was one of those little rolly, tiny horse gallops where they not really trying to gallop. They're just going faster than they want to go. He can win the Cup because he's won a Messenger, and the Messenger is by far the best lead-up race to the New Zealand Cup. It has been for 20 years. He's a good horse. And they're good horse people. Grimson knows what he's doing. Cam Hart is an outstanding future Hall of Famer, even though he's only 21 years old. But you would want this to be a lot better, Gregory, to be honest. You'd want things to have gone smoothly. So I take it, Gregory, these are the boys?
Yep, coming off, copy
coming
that,
off
and Majestic Cruiser. So they've arrived, they're in Christchurch, they've turned up in great nick. Copy that, loading up there, and here's Majestic Cruiser. So I know that Jason Grimson arrives today, being Wednesday, so he'll be hands-on with them out at Mark Jones's property. And yep, he wasn't disappointed in Saturday night's performance. Obviously, he won the race with I Cast No Shadow as well. But the boys have arrived. They are ready to go, and Majestic Horse Transport taking them to their respective locations. Of course, staying at the Ken Barron Tolliman Lodge barn as he did last year will be copy that, and Mark Jones with Majestic Cruiser.
Gregory, putting all that into, there's a lot of equations here. It's like a Venn diagram. Putting all this in before we have a barrier draw, which may not matter that much because there's only 14 in the draw now because South Coast Arden's out of it. Who do you like in the New Zealand Cup?
I reckon it's going to be hard enough to sort out who your top four is, let alone nailing it down. At the moment, I'm going to go for Rock and Roll Do, because I spoke to Mick Stanley yesterday. He said he's done exactly what he'd hoped he'd do post that run at Ashburton. He said he's eaten everything, he stepped his work up, he's not worried about the standing start, he thinks he'll handle that come race day, and he's going to the Cup trial today, even though there's only 3 in there, to give him another step. We'll have a look at the market, and whilst that's up on your screen, Michael, I want to know what your top tip is.
I'm going to wait to see how Rock and Roll Do steps away. A 3-horse trial is not a lot of use to us, but if he gallops it is. If he steps away, it means he's more chance of stepping away. It's a great race for somebody like me who likes to punt properly, because I can back 2 or 3 horses here. I'm happy to be on copy that, Greg, at $4, because I think if he leads, he'll be incredibly hard to beat, and he can win the race sitting off the speed because he's now being taught how to do that. I think Rock and Roll Do was top pick in my mind a week ago. I'm not sure if he is now. Maybe because copy that has gone forward again, and the time last week was very, very strong. So the barrier draw will influence me a little bit, because if copy that draws the second line, Greg, I don't like him as much, and that's true of Rock and Roll Do and Self Assured. I think BD Joe's a horse who has many ways he can win the race, but again, I like him a lot more from barrier 2 or 3 than I like him from 13 or 14. So the draw will matter to those horses. I don't think it matters to every horse in the race, but it's a wonderful race. I haven't looked forward to a harness race outside the race by grins because it was exciting and new, so I don't know much about it. I haven't looked forward to a New Zealand Cup, let's say, this much, maybe this millennium, because I loved looking forward to Lazarus. I loved looking forward to some of the other things, but this is wonderful. You can make cases for so many, and there's so many fairy tales. Even back to Colin de Philippi, and He's a Sport 2 weeks after Mike passed. Yep. The Dalgety fairy tale, the Southlander. It's a magnificent race, Greg. If you have any interest in harness racing, which you probably do if you're watching this show, and if you don't, you should probably stop watching. You want to go to Addington next week, or tune into Trackside, or tune into our preview show, which will be online on Sunday, because this is about as good as it gets in this country.
Yep, well, we'll have that preview show from about 3 o'clock on YouTube, and it'll play out both on Trackside Monday and Tuesday, so you just check your guides for times there. More about that a little bit later on. Right, let's leave the Cup there, because that Sunday preview show will focus in a whole lot more and have a whole lot more information for you post the barrier draw and after they've had their final hit out for many on the Sunday morning. All right, let's go back to Kaikoura from Monday. An upset, yes, it very much was. This was in the New Zealand Bloodstock Yelling Sales Aged Classic, and the business was done by Warlock. That's him stepping through the middle in the colours of Michael House, and we'll hear from the post-race winning connections.
The middle, Warlock went to the lead from Fernley Cash, and it's Warlock. What a grand old campaigner. Warlock won it and beat home Fernley Cash. Third across was Anything Goes, and then...
Gee, for a super old horse, it was great to see him pick up a big win like that.
Yeah, look, Cam, he's so deserved of it. He races it week in, week out, and goes exceptional times without people always realise it from the back of the field over quick last halves, and he's a wonderful old horse. Great campaigner.
Would have been pretty happy to see them burning pretty hard up front.
Oh, look, with a round to go, when Maddie left Blair out, I was getting quite excited, and up the straight I was yelling at the top of my lungs.
What's next for him now?
Oh, look, I'm not too sure where he's going next.
Yeah, well, nobody saw that coming, not his price anyway. So Warlock, after placing in this race, I think he was 6th or 7th a couple of years earlier behind William Wallace, comes out and blows them out. There were some great runs just in behind though. Anything Goes, got head on and battled on pretty solidly. Looked the winner halfway down. But you can't take it away from Warlock, Michael. That just shows you sometimes races, when you look at them, you think, well, that one's got no chance. Well, on this occasion, he did.
What a great story, because he's one of those horses who's turned up at Manawatu and Alexandra Park, and I think he's been to Invercargill, so he's been everywhere. And what Michael House does is he lines his horses up a lot and he's not scared to travel them, and that's really important for the industry because we need that turnover, Greg, and we need those horses and we need that competition. So for him to get that reward, that big $50,000 reward, fantastic. And Wilson, I haven't met Wilson, but he speaks very well, so obviously he's a great addition to Dad's team. Really happy with the result. I agree there's some pretty decent horses in behind. I gave Warlock no chance, but Greg, that's one of the great things about it. They've got to run the races, and at Kaikoura, as we're about to see in the trot as well, being on the marker pegs is an awfully big help.
Yeah, Fernley Cash, excellent in second. Last Tango in Heavens, a horse to follow, particularly going forward to New Zealand Cup week. With Brecon Farms, our trotting performance of the week. Here it is in the IRT South Bay Trotters Cup. Here it is at Group 3 level, and here's the champ back in front, rolling. We'll get to the aftermath to hear just how good he felt for driver John Dunn.
Sunday Sun is in a race of his own. He's 4 lengths clear from Midnight Dash, running on from Matuatana. The Dominion campaign is back on track, and Sunday Sun won it by 2 lengths on Midnight Dash. Third across Matuatana, then 5 Wise Men.
Well, he showed it last week after galloping how good he went after, but off that performance he looks to be back.
Yeah, it's pleasing to just get around in one piece, Cam, and he did go good last week after galloping, but you can't afford to gallop on that level or any level. So I know he's got a wee bit tired, sort of knocked up the last wee bit, but hopefully there's a bit more improvement. And the main thing is he got around one piece, and he seems happy and healthy and sound. So,
does he go on to the Cup Day trials or go to Cup Day now that there is a stand for him, or just straight to the Dominion?
No, after that effort today, we'll just go straight to the Dominion. If things went we were pear-shaped today, we might have had to have gone Cup Day. But being off a mark over 2,000 is never going to be easy, not a sort of cup of tea. So we'll go into Dominion with a bit of confidence now.
Well, Ben, his manners and his honesty just keeps putting him in the race.
Yeah, absolutely, Cam. It's a top run. He no shame in getting beaten by a champion, and he feels like he's back to his best.
Well, he flew home last start after galloping, and he put it all together today for a good performance.
He did, certainly a lot better. He trotted good early, which was a big improvement for him, and got around the track really good, which is another big improvement for him. And he kept coming up the straight, like he got out sprinted mainly, but still a really nice run for him.
Well, plugs were out a long way from home, but he kept finding the line nicely.
Yeah, well, they're going pretty strong up front. He was pretty lax the days ago. I think the run will do him the world of good, and this trip will sharpen him up again. But yeah, so just a shame we probably couldn't get another race into him. Whether we do give him a run on Cup Day, I'll just see how he comes through this and then go to the Dominion after that, but we'll wait and see.
Well, a bit of an uncharacteristic break for him today.
Yeah, it wasn't really expected, but he can be a wee bit funny around the tight tracks. He doesn't handle Invercargill all that well as well, so the being caught him out, but he began good and went good afterwards, so, just a bit of bad luck.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal from Smoke and Bandar. Look, the winner back in winning form is fantastic, isn't it, Michael? Especially leading to his defence of the Renwick Farms Dominion. He's won the last 2. I thought Tony was excellent. Bolt for Brilliance. He's now in the fields, as I understand it, for Cup Day. So Tony thinking he needs another run. Looking at the market, $3.20 for Bolt for Brilliance, Sunday Sun, and of course Muscle Mountains. So the bookie can't split them. What about you?
Well, first of all, that's a ridiculous market. I mean, I love what Matt Peden and the harness racing team are doing. They're big friends of this show, but that's ridiculous. 3 horses at $3.20, that's 100% of the market in 3 horses. So you've got to bump one out. Do it now. Just make a choice. Pick one. Pick one you don't like. I'll pick Muscle Mountain. Sunday Sun's great to have him back. It reeks of Michael Jordan going for his 6th NBA ring. He's probably past his best, but maybe he can pull it off. Richie McCaw at the 2015 World Cup. this is his last big chance. I don't think he'll be racing by the middle next winter. I think his body will give out. They injected his hocks last week. It's holding him together. It doesn't hurt them for anybody watching this. They're fine. Horse is fine. He's just getting old. I know how he feels. He can win, Greg. He gets up against the marker pegs, he can win anything. If he doesn't get up against the marker pegs, life's a lot tougher for him. Second, third horses, I don't think are factors in the Dominion, but they're horses who can run big races. Bolt for Brilliance is the interesting one. I think he surprised Tony. I think he was, two things surprising out of it. First of all, that Tony used the word lackadaisical, because there's no chance he's ever used that word before in his life. I put it in the story 3 weeks ago, and he's obviously stored it away, so he sounds smarter than he is. Second thing is that I think he's a run short. I'm absolutely certain he was a run short, and he did get a bit lazy in his head. That's what lackadaisical means, I think, when he had to pull the plugs with a lap to go. So, willing to forgive, absolutely no stress for the Dominion, but I think he surprised Tony. And that's the problem with the North on Trotters, Greg. We don't have consistent racing in the North, and it's going to be a problem heading forward because people are going to say, well, I'll just go south. So, he'll start on Tuesday. When I spoke to Tony last night, he'll start on Tuesday, give him a bit of a burl up, and then he should be a better horse for Friday. Most importantly with him, Tony is still keen to go to the Inter-Dominions, even though the plane won't be getting off the ground to get him back to Auckland. He says, we can float home and still go. I think, Greg, even though he won the Road Cup from a standing start, I think he's a better horse in mobile races. I think it dials at him more early, and he's more on the fight early. I think all this handicap racing he's done of standing starts can make him a little bit lackadaisical early in races, Gregory. So I'm not saying he can't win the Dominion. Of course he can win the Dominion. But the bookies need to move on one of these. You can't have 3 horses 3.2 because people just open the market and go, you're taking the piss, and they close it again.
Yep. No, hard to argue
who do you like in the race?
I think Bolt. I think Bolt can win it. I think if Sunday Sun gets to the markers, yes, he's the horse to beat, but there's no guarantee he'll get there. And I just love the way Bolt for Brilliance is trotting, and I think one more run on Cup Day will bring him on. And it's going to be one hell of a battle. I can't wait for it. It should be absolutely outstanding. Congratulations to Ben Smith, Bob Rochford, and the team there at Kaikoura. They turned on another great couple of days. Had a few friends there who just said it was dynamic, was the word they used. So yep, that was fantastic. Short break for us. On the other side, we'll catch up with what that fella done, as in Dexter's been up to, and we've got a whole lot more for you on your box seat. So here he is, yes, Bulldog Hanover doing it again, Michael. What a record this horse has put together, over $2.5 million. Our man Dexter Dunn on the bike, that was win 27 for him. Look, he went 45.4 earlier in this campaign, and he set a new Canadian record with this performance. Dexter had an unreal Breeders' Crown Day. I think his earnings was something like upward of $100,000 for his driving fees for the day.
I love Dexter, but I could have driven this horse to win. I would have been scared because he was going so fast, but geez, a good horse. He's just a wonderful horse. But isn't Dex just amazing? He really is the James McDonald of harness racing. There's nothing more you can say about it. He's a class act. He handles himself well. He talks well. He looks the part. He's just the best. He might be the best in the world. He's won $13.6 million in driving fee, in fees, so they get 5% up there, Greg. Simple math is about 650k out of that. They don't get the driving fees, they get the percentages, so that's a lot of money, US dollars. That's close to $1 million New Zealand earnings. Bulldog Hanover's a wonderful horse. How good he is, Greg, compared to the greats of all time, I don't know. I didn't get to see some of them up close. But he must be close to the top of the perch for consistency of very fast times, Greg. So incredible to think, what Dexter's done. It mirrors what J-Mac's done so remarkably, Greg, going to those big marketplaces and becoming the dominant force. And the two guys are actually mates. They don't know each other that well, but they're not dissimilar personalities, Greg. As someone who knows both of them, you would agree. So I'm tremendously proud of Dexter, which makes me sound like an old person, but I'm sure lots of other people watching this show are too.
Yeah, we all are, that's for sure. He's doing an amazing job. Young drivers, we need to speak about them now because the Macmillan Equine Feeds Junior Drivers Series was completed over the weekend. Here's Motormouth getting to the outside for Ali Barron in heat number 1. This was at Methven, of course. They had a couple of heats there, storming home to get maximum points for Ali, so a great start for her. Sarah O'Reilly was in second position there, so that got things underway nicely for her, but a great start for Ali Barron and Motormouth. This was heat number 2, and that's Sarah and Arizona Wildcat getting through on the inside of Ariella and Zev Meredith. This got Sarah significant points, and points that put her in a position to make it 3 titles for her career, which of course only topped by Maurice McKendry, who won the first 4 of the National Junior Drivers Series. Sarah didn't have a drive in this. Sam Thornley did, driving Streaming Live, who's just flying at the moment. In front, gets the business done. Now, Sam had a drive in this, Sarah didn't. Sarah had a drive in the last heat, Sam didn't. Not really sure that that's fair, but that's just how it is because they didn't have enough horses. So Sam Thornley continued on what has been an incredible last 12 months for him. And here was the final heat in driving for the All-Stars team, revered. He's not revered by the punters, he's hurt them a few times, but he got home here beating Kikarangi Blue and got the series victory for Sarah. Now, we're hoping to catch up with her, but that hasn't been possible, so we'll probably do that at a later date. But what about her record in this series? She's won an Australasian too, I think, Michael, so she's going to go down in the annals of history as being one of our very best, not only of her time, but all time.
Well, she might be the best of the O'Reillys. Just saying something. Very likeable person. And junior driver series or any driving series are weird things because obviously you get allocated horses and the horses you get allocated help. But over a period of time, you can't have been allocated good horses for 3 years. And you have to be able to drive in standing starts and on grass tracks and on mobiles and on little tracks at Kaikoura and on the grit. So she's obviously a complete horsewoman. I'm sure the O'Reillys are incredibly proud of her, as they should be. So great series, Greg. Just one thing on that. Not having full fields is less than ideal. And a lot of people here ring me on harness racing people and complain about harness racing New Zealand. They complain about handicapping systems. They complain about a whole lot of bullshit. But if you want the industry to have a future, you've got to support the young people in it. Now, I'd have no issues chucking a horse in a junior drivers race. But you can't moan about the industry and harness racing New Zealand and handicapping and there's not enough young people in the game and abuse people if you're not going to support them. There should be full fields for those races. They're penalty free. Doesn't make any sense.
I think one of the challenges for it, Michael, was having 2 heats at Kaikoura. It's not the ideal track for a lot of horses. I'm not defending the fact that
mate,
people didn't put them in.
I fully respect that.
But I'm not sure that that's a place to have 2 heats anyway.
Yep, fully agree, fully respect that.
But yeah, I totally concur with what you're saying.
You know, that only happens once a year. Yep. I mean, I'm not saying put your best horse in, don't put your best 3-year-old in.
Yep.
But if Mark and Nat can support it with a horse that revered, I mean, if you don't do these things, Greg, you don't have the right to go and abusing people who are doing them.
Yep. No, very difficult to argue with that. Now, we've promised over the last couple of weeks we'd catch up with Gary Woodham, the CEO of Harness Racing New Zealand. I got that opportunity yesterday, so let's get the latest from Harness headquarters. Gary, thanks so much for your time. It's such an important time for the industry. Let's just go back a couple of weeks to the annual conference and anything significant that came out of there for the wider harness racing community.
Yep. Hi, Greg. Hope you're well now and look forward to seeing your face tomorrow at Addington. Yeah, there was. So what it was a watershed moment for us to explain finally to all the 40 clubs of exactly how we're remunerated via the TAB and RNZ Racing New Zealand. And to be fair, that hadn't been done before. So we were able to get a kind of a level set with everybody of where the money comes from, how it gets distributed and how much we are actually getting. Because there's numbers thrown around in this sport all the time and now everyone knows the exact number that's there. And then we were able to start talking about the future of us as a sport, and how we all have to join hands, and it's not singing Kumbaya, but it's making sure we do the right thing every day for the people that need us, and they are the participants, the owners, the trainers, the breeders, and so forth. And it's up to the clubs and HRNZ to get that right. That is our responsibility under the Act. And I was really rapt, actually, about the acceptance of responsibility, accountability, and ownership. And so I'm looking forward to getting that team of clubs together again. In fact, we only normally meet once every 12 months, and I'm going to make sure we do it within 6 months to do a recheck. We had a workshop on governance about how the board structure should be, how we actually elect, and the number of that. And that's a first stage. We've got probably another 2 sessions to go. And then it's all about rewriting our constitution, because we're all about being part of the incorporated societies, and that law has just changed. And so we have to rewrite both HRNZ and the club constitutions going forward. And so we're working on putting a team together of club members and ourselves to actually, and legal people, to actually rewrite that on behalf of everybody. So a lot of chunky work there, a lot of grey faces of getting the reality of where we're going, but all up for the challenge, which is great.
All right, so how are we tracking this year?
So we as an individual sport are doing okay.
Yep.
We're about 32% up at a GBR level on this time last year. So I'm very, very comfortable with that. And as you can see, some of the fields are bigger sizes, especially in the central area, meaning the Canterbury area, than others, and it's holding us high. How's the TAB going is the other issue, because we're only one part of that whole TAB funding model, and we get funded not on just our own sport, but other sports and our import of other sports. So, and that's not going as well as we need it to. So that's another conversation we can have on this, so we can explain that.
All right, plenty of discussion. I know it was covered on Weigh-In with Bruce Sherrick around this idea of geo-fencing the country, and you know a lot about this stuff with your time with the TAB. How supportive are the Code of Harness Racing that this is probably going to become a reality?
Right, so yes, I do know a lot about it, because when I was at the TAB, we wrote a very large document for the Select Committee when they were writing the Act, and explaining what they needed to do. And geo-fencing, for those that don't understand, it means we put a perimeter around New Zealand, and if you want to try and get into another bookmaker outside New Zealand, you can't, you're blocked. Yep. That's what geo-fencing is about. And all the Western countries that we deal with across the racing nations, they've already done that to us, and we haven't. That got turned down, unfortunately, and so we're going to have another plug at it with the three codes and the TAB, led by Mike Todd, CEO. That is essential for our survival. We're talking huge numbers. We're talking between $650 million and above leaving our country, and that's at a top line. And so the bottom line is around about $100 million profit that we are losing out between the 3 codes. Simple as that. And our percentage on shareholder value at the moment is about 32.5. So you do the numbers. It's 32.5%, $35 million that we could be getting that we're not. Yeah. Because that's going to other people's pockets, and especially offshore bookmakers who don't give back to New Zealand. That goes in their pockets because they are their own business. Whereas New Zealand TAB is owned by everybody, and it comes back to the racing codes, really owned by the government, but everybody's everybody.
Yeah, and it's really important that happens. Continuing on the financial sort of side of things, the ATC, a significant membership meeting last week was held. The members voting to sell Franklin Park, and often coming up in the articles and conversations from there is the involvement of Harness Racing New Zealand. Just explain to me how and when you guys get involved in the sale of such a complex.
Okay, good question. So under the Racing Act of July 2020, any lease, sale, whatever around property needs to actually go through a process deemed inside the Act, run by the code, which is ourselves. So the club will get all their information together, what they're wanting to do, what they're trying to list, the timelines, what they're trying to achieve, and then that will be presented to the board of HRNZ. That will go through a process which is inside the document, and then it's a tick-off job, but making sure that all the fundamentals of a transaction make sense, and that we're not giving away value, and also understanding how the money would be used to satisfy the Act, that we're not just throwing it away and doing the wrong thing with it, but we're actually using it for the benefit of racing.
Yeah.
And so all of those elements come into it. So we have a document that all the clubs have of what the process is. They've got the act, they can understand it, but we work with them on a process which will take probably a good 4 to 5 months over that timeline, because toing and froing, getting a sales and purchase document, getting valuations, it's quite a lot of work to do. But ATC know what they have to do, and we'll be having a conversation with them in a few weeks' time.
And I know you know the significance of retaining harness racing in the northern region, particularly at Alexandra Park. Speaking of the significance, you've just come off the back of 2 great days at Kaikoura, but there's no bigger week in the sport than what's upcoming ahead. The weather gods look like they're going to play the part, and certainly the depth around the Cup. And I know you've got a slight biased view, having a couple of runners in it, but how great the build up to the IRT New Zealand Cup, because this year could be a cup for the ages.
Well, Greg, first of all, I've been at Kaikoura for 2 days. So for those who are looking at my forehead, yes, it is sunburnt. I didn't, slip, slop, slap, silly Gary. But, that's what happens when you think you're bulletproof, apparently, which I don't, but, that's what people think. So the point that we're talking about is the New Zealand Cup. And I think in my memory, and my memory is going back at least 20 years, this looks like the one that 5 to 6, maybe even 7 horses now, with Kango doing what that horse did yesterday, could be in the winning circle come next Tuesday. Very impressed with what I saw at Ashburton, very impressed with what I saw up in the north the other day with Copy That. Then have a look at what happened at Kaikoura just yesterday. And I'm busting to get to Addington next Tuesday and see what happens. And I do have 2 horses in there, and they've got a chance. But it will come down to what happens at Addington tomorrow with this barrier draw, because I think that's going to be the make or break it for everybody personally.
So quite clearly, Gary Woodham's buzzing going towards IRT New Zealand Cup Day, and so he should, Michael. A few of the key points that we discussed there. Rewriting the Constitution, that's boring for most people, but it's got to happen with the changes at government level. Support of the TAB for ring-fencing the country in terms of the geo-fencing. I'll be interested in your comments around that. And, of course, the Auckland Trotting Club process and how that's going to pan out, and Harness Racing New Zealand's role that they play in that. So that's going to happen over the next sort of 4 or 5 months. So pretty good to get that insight there from Gary, and he's very open with that stuff, Michael, and it's crucial for the industry. He's big on transparency, and he makes himself available for this show every time we ask.
Yeah, good on Gary for fronting up. It's a busy time. On the Auckland Trotting Club, the members voted to go ahead with the sale of the Pukekohe training complex, with a few caveats, of course, for $100 million. That's a good decision. I don't know what the other decisions possibly were, to be honest. So that's good. The ATC have been airing a lot of dirty laundry in public. That's bad. I advise them not to. They didn't listen. On the geo-blocking, it's not ideal, and I'm quite a decent-sized punter on harness racing, and I don't want it to happen on a personal level, but the industry's not about putting money in my pocket, or yours if you're watching at home. The industry needs strength, Greg, and unless they geo-block, it'll just get nibbled away at by the bookies. And people listening to this go, oh, it's all right for you, I want to have a bet on sports bet and entertain. Well, good luck to you. The bottom line is 95% of punters, probably 99%, don't win, so it doesn't really matter where you bet. You might want that choice, but it doesn't really matter because you're probably going to lose. And if you do win, you're probably still going to win with the TAB. So it's a really complex question and way too big for the show, Greg, and it's something I have a lot of very personal feelings on because I suggested this to Dean McKenzie 2 years ago. You must do this. When you go back to the offers made by Tabcorp, which was part of a non-disclosure agreement, which we managed to find out what's going on 3 years ago.
That's why you're on the show.
Well, the document was left in a cafe, Greg, and I opened to find it.
Can't help bad luck.
You can't help it. Needed a coffee. One of the things that said in the original offer, which was a loose offer, but they said, this offer is contingent on you having geo-blocking. That's what the Australians do. So any offer anybody's going to want to get into bed with us is contingent on geo-blocking. It has to be, otherwise you're buying something which eventually is going to be nibbled away. by the bookmakers overseas. Now, the people watching this will go, but I want to bet with Sportsbet, or I want to bet with Ladbrokes or Bet365. And I totally understand that. I punt more seriously than you do, trust me.
Yep.
But two things. If you are betting with an overseas corporate bookmaker, if you are betting with one and getting on unrestricted, you're losing. That's how the algorithms work. If you're winning more than 2%, they block you. I know. I deal with these people. I have lunch with these people. I know everybody involved in this equation far better than anybody else watching this show. If you're winning with an overseas corporate, if you're betting with an overseas corporate bookmaker unrestricted, you're losing anyway. So you might as well lose to the New Zealand TRB because it doesn't really matter what you do with your money. It's an important thing. It needs to be handled well. The government needs to get behind it because this is a lot of money we're shipping offshore, Greg. It's a complex equation. I'm happy to talk about it more heading forward. This isn't the week to do that. No. But the codes have to support it because every bookmaker in Australia who wants to get into bed with us for a joint venture and help grow our product, the first thing they're saying is, well, you need geo-blocking.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, basically, your racing licence and this JV's worthless.
Yep.
It's as simple as that. As I said, Greg, complicated question. We'll talk about it more in the future. Just trust me on this one. This is what they expected us to do. We're just late doing it, and we should have done it 2 years ago. And you can't do it unless you have Punter's Promise. But because we have Punter's Promise, where you can win 2,000 on any race, which is world leading,
yep.
way better than anywhere else in the world. Because you've done that, that means that no one can be shut out of the game. Nobody can be shut out of the game, Greg. And if you can do that, then you deserve the right to have a conversation with the government about geo-blocking. And of course, they still have to approve it.
Yes, they absolutely do. So we'll watch this space with regards to the progress of that. With Garrards, let's head across the Tasman, taking a couple of big races. They had a huge night there at Menangle the other night. We'll get to that shortly because here's Ladies in Red, Queen of the Pacific. Brilliant performance. Braveview Kelly ends up in third position there with Anthony Butterboard. But she's just brilliant, Ladies in Red. Tough Tilly gets to second, but she's never finished further back than second, Michael, and she's got herself well over 800,000 now.
I think it'll scare a lot of New Zealand mares away from going to the Ladyship Mile, Greg. I don't think many will be lining up to be popping across the Tasman anytime soon, so she's awfully good. Braveview Kelly, really good there, and that was after a 1:49 the week before, so she's done her job in Australia. Just on the mares, Stylish Memphis.
Yep, she's actually been served by Captain Treacherous, so she may well race on. I see she's in the nominations for Cup Day, but she got served on Saturday or Sunday, so that's why she wasn't in at Kaikoura. Sticking with that Australian stuff, let's go and have a look at this horse. Gee, I love him, Michael. Leap to Fame, another brilliant performance. He's outside My Ultimate Ronnie. Now, there is some talk that they might come to the New Zealand Derby with My Ultimate Ronnie, but this season, 450,000 in the bank. Grant Dixon knows how to peak this horse for the big races, and he did it again here, Michael.
1:49, just a wonderful horse, not really a miler, just outstanding, outstayed them. And he heads to the paddock, Greg, and he's not going to go to the Chariots of Fire in mid-February. Grant said, we've got the Eureka, worth about $2 million, coming up in September. Kevin Seymour, who owns the horse, has a slot. He'd have to share the money, not that he needs it. So he has a chance to go there, Greg, and that's going to be his big aim. Grant Dixon's driven over 5,000 winners. Yep. I spoke to him on Monday and said, what would you like to win? If I gave you any race in the world, what would you like to win the Eureka? Without a hesitation, he said, the New Zealand Cup.
Right.
I want to win the New Zealand Cup. I said, okay. I said, Leap to Fame, New Zealand Cup horse. He said, Inter Dominions are in Queensland next year. That'll be our focus. He said, but I'm going to qualify him from a standing start next campaign so the New Zealand Cup can be on his radar.
Brilliant.
The race he wants to win, out of every harness race I've said in the world, the New Zealand Cup.
Yeah, that's a huge rap for it, isn't it?
Well, it'd be awfully fun to have him here.
Yeah, it would be. Yep, he's been here before with other horses, of course, but this horse here might be the best he's ever had. We're going to take a short break here on your box seat. On the other side, we'll be in the home straight as we build towards IRT New Zealand Cup week again. Welcome back into your box seat. Harness racing wise this week, we go to Rangiora for an afternoon meeting on Friday. First gets underway 10 past 1, 11 race card there. Alexandra Park Friday night, 9 races, 5 past 6, and Wyndham race on Sunday, 12:20 will be the last harness meeting before we get to Addington Raceway at lunchtime on Tuesday. Don't forget about our preview show. We will record that on Sunday morning, be on YouTube by about 3 o'clock. Sunday afternoon and played out over the next couple of days on trackside. So harness racing's a bit quieter this week, Michael, but obviously barrier draw, cup trial, although we're only 3 in it, will have a part to play, but we'll have all the information for you on Sunday's show. Before we talk just a little bit more about that, what about a best bet of the week? Graham Hands said, I want to spend my 200 Cup week, so we're giving him a leave pass this week, but you've got a winner and I've found one too.
I like Faith in Manchester in the last race at Alexandra Park on Friday. Comes out of a stronger field. Toddy Mitchell's driving. Just lots of pluses. It's just in the right race.
Yep.
I think it'll win, Greg.
Yeah, and I like Caitlin Denario, goes around on Friday. Race 5, number 5, I think it is, trained by Nathan Williamson, who I think will go forward, get the lead, and that will make it very, very hard to beat. Michael, not too many sleeps to go now, but all importantly, that preview show with that information. Markets, by the way, fields come out Wednesday afternoon. Markets for the features will be out pretty shortly after that, and all of the markets will be out Thursday afternoon for Tuesday's IRT New Zealand Cup Day. So great work by the bookmakers there.
Well, particularly with no deductions, Greg.
Yeah.
You get the chance to back them early doors and get involved. It's been a shit couple of years, Greg. Let's be honest. The Cup week last year, I loved Ray Green winning with Copy that, but it was just dull. The whole thing was dull. In fact, life's been pretty dull for much of the last 2 years because of COVID. And there's been far bigger things happening in life than just some horse race. But we deserve this, Greg. We all deserve to go there and have some fun and shake hands with people we like and haven't seen for ages and see a great race where we're not sure what's going to happen. That's why we do this. So I hope everybody enjoys it, Greg. To everybody who's got a horse racing this weekend, I don't care if your horse is a 100-start maiden or if you've got Copy that is favourite for the Cup. I hope your horses get round safe. I hope you enjoy it. I'm looking forward to being part of it. We're going to try and make, between us, Greg and I are going to ring every single person involved in the Cup. Every trainer we will ring before Sunday to give you an update on their horse, because it's a great race and you deserve a great big heap of information.
Yep, we certainly do that. Michael and I won't see you in 7 days. We'll see you in about 4.